Hello and welcome to What the F Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis, let's get to it. It's Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. Welcome to day 520. The Supreme Court struck down a New York gun law enacted more than a century ago that limited who could carry a concealed handgun for self-defense in public, ruling for the first time that the Second Amendment protects gun rights outside the home. The 6-3 ruling to limit the ability of state and local governments to restrict guns outside the home marks the widest expansion of gun rights in a decade. At least 6 states have laws that prevent most people from legally carrying a handgun outside the home. Writing for the majority, Justice Clarence Thomas said that, quote, "The constitutional right to bear arms in public for self-defense is not a second-class right subject to an entirely different body of rules," end quote, adding that the Second Amendment is not limited to people who can demonstrate a special need to carry a gun in public. In the dissent, Justice Stephen Breyer pointed to the nearly 300 mass shootings since January and to data showing that, quote, "gun violence has now surpassed motor vehicle crashes as the leading cause of death among children and adolescents," end quote. Meanwhile, the Senate moved a step closer to approving bipartisan gun control legislation after clearing the 60-vote threshold that's needed in order to break a Republican filibuster. The vote was 65-34, with 15 Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, joining all 50 Democrats to vote to advance the package. A final vote could come as soon as today, and the House is expected to pass the bill and send it to Biden's desk for his signature before leaving for a 2-week recess. Today's procedural vote came less than 2 hours after the Supreme Court struck down the New York law requiring people to show a special need to carry a handgun in public. Moving on, the Biden administration plans to reinstate Title IX protections for transgender students that were tossed out by the Trump administration. The proposal would also overhaul a controversial set of rules issued by Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, which narrowed the definition of sexual harassment, expanded the rights of students that are accused of harassment, and required schools to allow cross-examination of parties in sexual misconduct complaints. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said the proposal would codify the protections of Title IX for transgender students, which prohibit schools that get federal funding from discriminating on the basis of sex. The protections also ban all forms of sex discrimination, including discrimination based on sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy, or related conditions, as well as sexual orientation and gender identity. The Biden administration also agreed to cancel about $6 billion in federal student loan debt for roughly 200,000 borrowers who were defrauded by their college. In 2019, during the Trump administration, a group of borrowers sued the Education Department under a rule known as the Borrower Defense to Repayment, which allows borrowers who believe they were defrauded by their college to request federal student loan relief. According to the settlement, the more than 150 schools included in the deal demonstrated substantial misconduct, and many of them are now out of business. The administration has previously approved $25 billion in loan forgiveness for 1.3 million borrowers, but roughly 43 million Americans still have federal student loan debt. Moving on, federal agents searched the home of former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark, who played a key role in Trump's efforts to get the Justice Department to challenge Biden's electoral victory. In the days before January 6th, Clark and Trump devised a plan to oust then-acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and for Trump to then name him Attorney General. According to the scheme, Clark would then direct the DOJ to intervene in Georgia and set aside its voting results in order to sway the state towards Trump. The alleged plan to appoint Clark acting Attorney General prompted several DOJ officials to threaten to resign. Trump considered but ultimately abandoned the plan before the January 6th attack. Clark's conduct is also the focus of today's January 6th hearing. And finally, Trump pressured top DOJ officials to, quote, "just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressmen," end quote, as part of his bid to stay in power. This according to evidence presented during the January 6th committee's 5th hearing. 3 Trump-era DOJ officials recounted Trump's efforts to enlist the Justice Department into helping overturn the election, including seizing voting machines from states in late December 2020. Former Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen testified that the DOJ didn't have the legal authority to carry out Trump's request, and that the department held firm against political pressure. Days after January 6, at least 5 Republican lawmakers asked White House officials whether Trump would pardon them for their activities in the lead-up to January 6th. Representatives Andy Biggs, Louis Gohmert, Scott Perry, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Matt Gaetz all requested pardons. Mo Brooks also sent an email asking for all-purpose pardons for lawmakers who objected to the electoral votes from Arizona and Pennsylvania. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.